Lakeland PBS, the Bemidji Pioneer, Brainerd Dispatch, Park Rapids Enterprise, and Northern Community Radio are proud to present Debate Night 2022, a look at our area legislative candidates. Your moderator tonight is Bethany Wesley. And now, the Senate District 6 debate.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us live at the Lakeland PBS studio in Bemidji for Debate Night 2022. I'm Bethany Wesley, your moderator for tonight and tomorrow. We look forward to continuing this exciting week of debates covering topics and issues that are important to you and your communities. Now we turn our attention to Senate District 6. Our candidates are Senator Justin Eichorn, Republican Party, and Steve Samuelson, Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Our panelists tonight are Dennis Wyman, Lakeland PBS News Director, Heidi Holton, National Public Radio Affiliate, KAXE News Director, and Shannon Geisen, Park Rapids Enterprise Editor. The rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening comments. The panel will then ask questions. Some will be questions of their own, others will come from the public. The candidates will rotate the order they speak, beginning with opening comments and finishing with closing comments. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer each question. Each candidate will have a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity. Candidates will also have the option of using 1 minute of bonus time to add on to one of their answers tonight. This could be the initial question, it could also be the rebuttal time, but it can only be used once. Questions will continue until we're about 50 minutes into the debate, and then we'll move on to closing comments. Closing comments are 2 minutes. We are going to go ahead and get started tonight with opening comments. Steve, you can go first.
Well, thanks for having me and inviting us for this debate. Thank Lakeland TV and the many sponsors for this. My name is Steve Samuelson, and I'm running for the State Senate and Senate District 6. And I have kind of like two reasons why I'm running. And the first reason is because the extreme part of the Crow Wing County party forced my friend Carrie Rude out. And she had been our senator for over 10 years and was, everybody seemed to like her. She got a lot of votes. And so there was nobody to run, so people had a choice. And so I was taking care of my mother, who was at home at hospice. And before she died, she suggested that I should run. And it's not because I was the smartest bulb or anything like that. It's because she knows my character and she knew my heart and she knows how I can solve problems through compromise. And so our family grew up around politics. My dad served for 32 years. On my website, I have the Samuelson footprint and all the things that he got accomplished. And he got those accomplished by working together. So that's enough.
Thanks, Steve. Justin?
Thank you. And first of all, I got to start by saying thank you to Shannon and Dennis and Heidi and Bethany for taking time out of your busy schedules to do this for us. It's always important, and we've always respected the work that Lakeland has done for these debates. I'm State Senator Justin Eichorn, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to serve the Grand Rapids, Bemidji areas, Itasca, Cass, and Beltrami counties for the last 6 years as your state senator. And hopefully, with your blessing, I would love to continue as your state senator going forward in the new districts that were drawn, Senate District 6, Itasca County, Cass County. I have 4 young kids. I've been married for 15 years. I grew up in a small business and outdoor store comparable to like a Gander Mountain or a Cabela's. I've served in the Senate again for 6 years. I've had the opportunity to serve on the Environment Committee, the Jobs Committee, the Early Childhood Education through Grade 12 Committee, Capital Investment, Commerce, Aging, the Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Board, and I had the honor of being the Mining and Forestry Policy Chair the last 2 years. I'm running again because I think there's still a lot of work to be done, just like I did in 2016 when I first ran. I saw in 2016 Metro Democrats were doing everything they could to leave Greater Minnesota behind. And I thought that was unconscionable. And I still think that's the case today. I have 4 young children, as I already mentioned, and I believe that my children, along with every Minnesota child, deserves a better future than the previous generation had. I think that we can continue to do that and drive the state in a better way to give children in the next generation and our current generations better opportunities. Over the last 6 years, we've accomplished a lot for the Bemidji area, like the Bemidji Veterans Home, and many other projects that folks talked about and that they were passionate about. I've spent the last 6 years listening and learning and doing the work to serve our area and greater Minnesota and our region. I would be honored to continue to be your voice at the state capitol, and I'm looking forward to this hopefully spirited but fun and fair debate this evening, and I'm ready to get on with the questions.
Thanks, Justin. We're going to move to our questions then. So our first question will come from Heidi, and then Justin, you'll answer first.
So this has to do with jobs and the environment. Governor Walz and the IRRR and others worked to assist Huber Engineered Woods in a proposed new timber mill near Cohasset to manufacture oriented strand board or OSB panels. Some see the mill as a positive for the area, while others are voicing concerns about the impacts it could bring to the environment and to the water of northern Minnesota. So what can Huber bring to the region, and will you listen to those in opposition as well?
Thank you for the question. So yes, will we listen to the opposition? We've already done that, but I've had an opportunity to see Huber's plan, some of what they're doing. We know that Huber will certainly be cutting woods, but we've seen the way they've cut timber in other states, the way they've done it sustainably, and we know that to have healthy forests, they need to be managed forests. We need, that new growth as well as the old growth. Some of the opposition has come from the Leech Lake Band, and I understand their opposition. This project itself is not going to be within Leech Lake territory. Huber is still going to have to go through a rigorous environmental process, which they've already been doing. It's currently at the federal level right now for the federal permits. I believe from what I've seen that they will be a good steward of the area. In any area they've operated in this country, they've been a good steward. They've been a community partner. They're also going to backfill jobs that could potentially be lost at the Boswell Energy Center, where the Huber plant will be located just off of the Boswell Energy Center. That's another important step for the people that live in Cohasset that are concerned about where their community goes as some of these power plants transition offline. So it has been an important, not only potential economic boost, I think, for the Grand Rapids area, but a huge moral boost for the people of the area as well. And I think that's what people are excited about. All of the people that are looking at working on this site want them to do it properly, cleanly, and I think they will, because we have the right regulatory system in place to do that. They have the right plan in place, and we have the right people to do the job. So I think they can do it responsibly.
Thanks, Justin. Steve.
I just really don't like when we pit environment against a job program, just like the environment and mining. There's enough technology out there today to do all this stuff safely and good for the environment. The problem is everybody wants to pick a winner or a loser. And you got to bring both parties to the table and work it out. And my best example is when my dad chaired the Health and Human Service Committee. He took the lobbyists from the MCCL and the lobbyists from Planned Parenthood and made them go downstairs and fix the legislation bipartisanly together. And do not come out of that room until you do it. And it took them all day, but they did it. And so you just need to have both parties get together and work together and get it done as soon as they possibly can. I know it's possible, and that's just the thing that's lacking nowadays. Is there's just no civility. There's no integrity, there's no honesty, nobody trusts anybody, nothing but finger pointing, and that doesn't get anything accomplished, just like what happened in the last session, not being able to finish the work.
Thanks, Steve. Justin, rebuttal?
No.
Okay, thank you. Shannon.
Minnesota's new social studies standards, which are still under review, want to require a broad array of perspectives in public school lessons about history, government, economics, geography, and for the first time, ethnic studies. What is your opinion on the proposed curriculum?
Me?
Steve?
Well, sounds good to me. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the education board or whatever sets up these curriculums, and it's made up of a lot of people who have an open mind. When I went to school, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, geography, history, social studies, and those were great topics. I mean, even government, you know, and that's the one I shined at the most, was social studies. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I also think that, you know, that the schools can open their doors and let parents come in and see and observe and, you know, talk about their curriculum when they're putting it together. You know, I just don't like this divisiveness that's happening in all forms of government.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Justin?
Thanks for the question. And there are these new social standards, as you mentioned, that they're talking about. And a lot of parents we've heard concern from. They're concerned that critical race theory will be a part of that. And we've seen from the board that is putting this together that could certainly be a part of the package. I think there needs to be more discussion about it, more parents looped into that. And in fact, whether it's this rule or any other rule, whether it has to do with mining or forestry or whatever, the legislature should be brought back into that. The people that are elected, that are accountable to the people that vote for them, should have an up or down vote say in that. So I think that's one thing we need to do. But what we did ask that board to do, and the Department of Education, is take a step back. I mean, kids are struggling because of what they went through over COVID and the distance learning. We've seen throughout the state that reading, writing, and math scores are abysmal. We need to take a step back and say, let's do what we can to fix our core subjects. Let's help students get back on the right track before we start talking about doing something new, especially something that has been so controversial as this.
Okay.
To say something on that.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what this critical race theory is, besides, I don't know. I've never heard it defined. I don't know if it's even real. I would like to know what it is, and I also don't have any problem with teaching the history of what happened in our country in the last 250 years.
Justin, rebuttal?
I would just encourage Mr. Samuelson to take a look at it. CR3 is very real, and there's a reason parents are concerned about it. That's why the discussion should continue, should involve legislators and the legislative process and parents as well.
Okay. Thank you. Question from Dennis.
According to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, crime numbers across the state have risen drastically since 2018. Murders, robberies, violent crime. As a lawmaker, how would you work to reverse this increase in crime in the state?
Thank you, Dennis. So I'd say there isn't a specific thing that we as legislators could do. I think it's going to take a cultural shift. It took a cultural shift to get us to the point where the police were treated the way they are being treated today. But some of the things we can do, we can control, are things that we started to do this last session that unfortunately didn't pan out that we could continue. One, providing incentives for people to get into a law enforcement career. Two, providing retention bonuses for people that are willing to stay in law enforcement. And anybody who's a public official should think about how they talk about law enforcement in the public. Part of the reason people don't want to be police officers is because they've been demonized. They've been demonized in the media and by elected officials, and I think that's unfortunate. When I go to St. Paul every now and then, you see a police officer eating out and a member might go up to him and buy their dinner. You see that person in tears because that's the first person throughout the day that didn't swear at them. We need to look at our police different. We need to treat them with respect. I've been endorsed by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association because I think it is important that we do everything we can to support, not defund our police, and that's what I will continue to do.
Thanks, Justin. Steve.
Thanks for the question. Public safety is a big concern. The sheriff's departments that I visited with and the deputy that ran the jail, their main problem nowadays is mental health. Ever since they closed that state hospital in Brainerd, they had no plan. And so now it's left to the police department, the sheriff's department, and jails and corrections to a place for people to go with these addiction problems and mental illness. There was a 70-year-old man who had dementia and got thrown in jail for 3 days, no clothes on when they brought him to jail, and he doesn't know where he was. The guy did not belong in jail, and so now we're criminalizing these people, and we need to invest in addiction and mental health, starting in schools, and the whole recovery system should be a lot easier. I've dealt with addiction myself, and thank God in 1988, January 8th, I stopped drinking, and it's been a great 34 years. So, there's a lot of potential out there who are people who are addicted that could go and be productive people.
Thank you, Steve. Justin, rebuttal?
Not necessarily rebuttal, but another thing that I failed to mention, another thing that we worked on that I think is also an important step is dealing with some mandatory minimums. We've seen several scenarios in media stories where somebody who committed a heinous crime gets back out because they paid the bail and then commits another crime. We need to make sure that we're not allowing criminals so easily back out on the street. Keep those people in jail that need to be incarcerated for the time until their trial comes up. So I think addressing the mandatory minimums is another piece we need to continue to look at.
Thank you, Justin. Steve.
I'm glad the senator brought that up, because when a newcomer runs against a sitting senator, they have a record, and so Justin voted twice against legislation that would have dedicated $500 million to public service or public safety, and also to not raise the penalty on stealing catalytic converters. And so they care more about the junkyard people making money than they care about people's cars being stolen, and that's not reducing crime.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We will move to our next question then from Heidi.
Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court this year. This leaves abortion up to the states. How will you approach a woman's reproductive health if you are elected?
Steve?
I'm first? Okay. Well, I have to start off by saying that, I'm pro-life. Pro-life to a fault, almost. But it was easy to say that because I'm a man, for one thing. But number two, we had Roe v. Wade. Well, now the Justice Department comes out, or the Supreme Court comes out and overturns it. I don't know what extra rights they're going to start taking away next. But there's just not enough room in the doctor's office for a woman, her doctor, and the government. A woman's, freedom is choice. So without choice, women are losing freedom. And so, government has no business telling a woman what she should be doing. It's a tough enough decision to do by themselves, but some states are getting so extreme that they won't. They'll be banning the morning after pill, or trying to control birth control, which would stop unwanted pregnancy in the first place. And that's kind of what is going to be happening if we don't keep abortion rare, safe, and legal. And the legal part is simple. You go look at Texas. Criminalizing this, and so now I can call and go, hey, my neighbor is going to go have an abortion, and then get some kind of reward because I told on her. It's it needs to be safe, rare, and legal, and that's what needs to happen.
Thank you, Steve. Justin.
Well, even though the Supreme Court did overturn Roe versus Wade, they did the right thing by saying that that decision should go back to the states. The states have the 10th Amendment. It should be up to states to make decisions like that. States are supposed to be the beacon of government as defined in our Constitution. And for people that do want to still have an abortion, there is a Minnesota Supreme Court case, Doe versus Gomez, that still would allow that. And I think, unfortunately, it would be extremely tough to change that. So the process would be if the legislature did pass something and it was signed by the governor, signed into law, there would immediately be a legal challenge that would kick it up to the Minnesota Supreme Court and would probably be thrown out. Certainly things we could try to do. I think the discussion needs to be about how can it be safe and rare. I don't think there should be abortions at any point personally, but if the state's going to have it, there should be some type of restrictions on abortion. And when you look at the polling, over 70% of Minnesotans think there should be some restrictions. Now, you've heard extreme cases from the left where people are promoting abortions up till the day of birth. That, I think, is wrong. So we as a society need to decide at what point is that baby, I realize my colleagues on the left think it's a clump of cells, but to the rest of society that believes in pro-life, we think that's a human being, a human life. At what point does that individual in the womb become a human? Is it when there's a heartbeat? Is it the second trimester? I think that's the discussion that needs to happen. We could probably get to a place in this state where there are fewer abortions, and I think we need to work toward that. The only way abortion is going to get overturned in Minnesota is with a constitutional amendment, and I would not be opposed to that being a constitutional amendment question to allow every individual in Minnesota to decide that. I think that would be okay.
Thank you, Justin. Steve, a rebuttal?
The problem with that, to me, is the First Amendment is freedom of religion. So I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, and this is a Catholic thought. That's the way they teach it. Now you go to a different religion, and to them, life doesn't start until the baby comes out and takes its first breath. So which religion is going to be in charge of a woman's body? And that's the discussion that has always been the discussion about that. And I say keep the religion out of it. It'd be a lot easier.
Thank you, Steve. Justin.
I didn't realize we were having a theological discussion, but rather about one, at a certain point, life begins. And that's the discussion I think we really need to have. It was also mentioned earlier that there's states that are looking to ban birth control and morning after pills. None of that is even being talked about in Minnesota, so that's not something folks will have to worry about. But again, we need to talk about when does life begin, because I think we could save many lives by having some restrictions. So I think that discussion does need to happen and is healthy for our society to have those discussions.
Thank you, Justin. Question from Shannon.
The long-term security of freshwater supplies is threatened by an array of aging infrastructure, aquifer depletion, climate change, pollution. If elected, what steps will you take to protect Minnesota's natural water resources?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do. You kind of mentioned, city water sources. Certainly we have a lot of aging infrastructure in this state, and that's one area we've worked at on our capital investment committee that I served on, getting dollars to greater Minnesota cities specifically where there have been a lot of problems. And in fact, the city of Bemidji had a water problem that we helped get money for to help their water treatment plant here. There's situations like that all over this state that I think we can continue to help. It's billions and billions of dollars throughout the state. That is an area the state should play a role and continue to. But there are other things we can do to help our freshwater supply. One of those, and people don't realize, is forestry. Having a healthy forest that's managed, that means some of the trees get cut, part of the logging industry will also help our forests. Allowing those type of activities, I think, is healthy. I think it helps our water supply. We all need to be mindful of what we're doing, keeping things clean. We are blessed with an abundance of fresh, not only fresh, but clean water in northern Minnesota that they don't have in many places all over the world. And if you look at a map, I think it's always very interesting when some of the metro folks that want to tell us we do a bad job mining and we're going to dirty the water. If you look at the cleanest water in the state, it's in northeastern Minnesota. And probably we have some of the cleanest water in the entire country, if not the world. We can continue to do this. We've had a record of showing we can keep the water clean, and I think we should continue on the course to keep doing that, and the legislature is certainly a part of that equation.
Thank you, Justin. Steve?
Well, I would say that our water is, like our rivers, are a lot cleaner now than they were in the 70s, because we realized we had a problem. You couldn't even eat, you were told not to eat fish more than once a week or something because of the acid rain. And so, you know, without water, there's not going to be any life. So that is another area where bonding is a good idea for helping small towns and townships or whatever to be able to update their infrastructure on water. So we just have to keep moving forward and be mindful. It'd be nice, you know, the old way we did it in the Boy Scouts is you leave the woods better than you found it. So you don't litter, you don't do anything. I try to leave this planet every day better than it was the day before.
Thank you, Steve. Justin, rebuttal? No. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the next question then from Dennis Wyman.
And this is a question from a viewer. It simply asks, what is your plan to address the lack of affordable housing for low-income and disabled individuals?
Steve?
Wow, that is a big problem, and it's a big problem all over. I mean, we have homeless people in Brainerd, and my church is, this week, we are going over and volunteering at the warming shelter. This problem's been going on for a number of years, and it needs to be addressed instead of talked about. They just keep kicking this issue down the road and then talk about it during the election, and then when it's time to do the work, nothing happens. I don't know the answer for that, but I do know that there's enough people out there that could come up with ideas, grants or whatever, to build low-income housing. We need it. All the cities need it. So that's what needs to happen, is to just start somewhere. I don't know, but the neighborhood I grew up in was Southeast Brainerd was filled with families, and the persons had a union job. Well, the union jobs all left. And so now the neighborhood is all rentals, where the rent is too high for people to even live. So you got people going in and out, in and out, in and out, and then that's more for crime. Affordable housing would save a lot of problems. Habitat for Humanity is a great program. Expand the heck out of it. Incentivize it somehow. But that's what needs to be done.
Thank you, Steve. Justin?
Thanks for the question. And affordable housing, I think you could look at on a couple different fronts. And I think on both, the government is certainly part of the problem. We've seen, let's take single family housing first. We've seen in areas, especially around the suburbs, where permitting costs, the cost of government can be as much as 25% of a new build, which prices a lot of people out of the market. In greater Minnesota, in some cities, in bad scenarios, it's 15% of a new build. Because of the cost of government, permitting, regulations, those type of things. Should we have some regulations? Certainly. There are some health and life safety things that are important to keep there, but we should take a look. And we do have a housing committee in the Senate. I don't serve on it, but watched it from the side. They had some very important conversations about how they should change some of that, and there was good bipartisan discussion there. The other piece that a lot of people think of when they think of affordable housing is apartments, Section 8 housing. One question I've always had, and the state has appropriated hundreds of millions of dollars every biennium to build what is considered affordable housing, Section 8 apartment housing. When we do that, it is always extremely expensive compared to what the general public would build, a general contractor, if I was to go build it. I use an example here in Bemidji a few years back. There was a beautiful property that was built on the water that was built for about half the cost of the Section 8 project of a similar size across town. So why is it so much more expensive when the government builds housing? We need to look at that. I think we can partner with communities. I know there's certainly some ideas that are coming up in smaller communities in the new district where they're looking at how they might be able to help new builds by getting rid of some of that regulation, permitting, lowering some of those city fees. The state government might be able to play a role in helping cities do that. I think we need to find some out-of-the-box solutions. It isn't just more apartments. I think a lot of people are looking for single-family homes, and that's really where we need to start looking for how we can help people achieve the American dream, which is owning their own house in an affordable way.
Thank you, Justin. Steve?
Say maybe the answer is the local government should work with the state government and get some of these problems figured out, so they don't have all of these extra costs or whatever. It does not make sense to me for building a house through a Section 8 house, like Justin said, and a regular home, but the Section 8 house costs more. I don't quite understand that. But, you know, it's just a way of the two governments need to work together and figure out something. And I'm glad to hear that they have that housing authority down there right now in their meeting. And I would like to check on how the progress is going.
Thanks, Steve. Justin?
I think when it comes to cities working with the state government, that's certainly important as well, but we need to give cities their own local control. If a city wants to charge 30% in permitting fees, that should be their prerogative. I don't agree with it, but cities that want to do something different should also have that prerogative. So I think we should leave it up to cities. We can certainly set some of the criteria on the code side at the state, also provide some dollars in funding for local governments to do that. But they better understand their local constituencies better than somebody at a state agency trying to decide what a city specifically should do, especially in greater Minnesota, considering our state agencies are mostly metro-centric.
I agree.
Thanks, Justin. We will move to a question from Heidi.
Chronic wasting disease was found within the city limits of Grand Rapids last year, and it's been found in other areas of the state. What's your understanding of chronic wasting and what it means, big picture, and the efforts to curb it?
Well, I think it's a horrible disease that we've certainly seen coming into our state more and more. The state has provided a lot of dollars in funding to the University of Minnesota. There's a lot of studies going on there. I think we need to continue to study it. We certainly don't want it to become a bigger problem like it has become in some of our neighboring states. I don't think there's a solution to it yet, but we need to keep working on it. I know there was one positive in the Grand Rapids area, which is unfortunate, but the DNR did a lot of work to have people kind of call the herd to make sure that it didn't become a problem, and there hasn't been an issue in the Grand Rapids area since. But that is something that should be continued to monitor, and that is a role of state government to monitor that, because deer aren't going to just stay in one general area of somebody's district or the state. They move around a lot, so it is important that we continue to monitor that and that dollars are available for the DNR to continue that work they've been doing.
Thanks, Justin. Steve?
Yeah, I agree. You know, anytime there's a disease like that running around, we need to bring everybody together to solve that problem. Just like the way COVID. If you end up trying to politicize that issue, the chronic wasting disease. It needs to be regulated, studied, funded, and I think I've heard a lot of good things that the DNR has done, and I know that mostly it's kind of been kept in a smaller area than it could have been with the way deer wander around. But it's scary when they have these new diseases that come out, and the need to, take a look at that kind of stuff and stay on top of it so it doesn't get worse like it does in some other states.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Justin, did you have a rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Okay. Let's move on to a question from Shannon.
The 2023 legislature will convene with a significant surplus. How should the money be used with respect to spending and/or tax relief? Be specific, please.
$9 billion surplus. First of all, it's pretty sad that it's still sitting there, because it got used as a campaign slogan, that we'll give it away this way. My thought on that is, first of all, is the taxes. Our tax system needs to be redone. And I know that there was a lot of money, the plan was already put out there to help education, to help small businesses, to help a whole bunch of different things, and then even little Jesse checks. But, one party didn't want the other party to look good about what they were doing with this money. And it belongs to the people, it's tax dollars, it should go back to the people, and not get carried over for the next election to find out, oh, well, then we can be in charge and we'll be the ones that hand it out. So we'll be the good guys. You're demonizing one party or the other. What would have been really nice is that after a special session was held, they came to a conclusion. Both parties went out there together to do a press conference and said, look what we did together, both parties together. Right now, all they do is point fingers at each other and have three more pointing back at them, and that's just not getting anything accomplished.
Thank you, Steve. Justin?
On the $9 billion surplus, that is still there. It canceled back to the bottom line. So what should we do with it? The number one thing I've been hearing from people when it was kind of a big deal in 2022, and even a little bit through this campaign season, is give the money back. There's a couple ways we wanted to do that I think are going to be important. One is to finally repeal the tax on Social Security. If you receive Social Security, if you're old enough to receive Social Security as a benefit, you are paying tax on that as income again. You've already paid tax on that. We don't think that's fair. We're one of only just a handful of states that still does that. We want to fully get rid of that. The other thing is ongoing permanent tax relief for Minnesotans. With how high inflation has gotten, the family budget has gotten very stretched. So one thing the state of Minnesota can do is make sure that people aren't taxed more than they should be going into the future. So instead of giving a check back like the governor wanted to do, we wanted to give long-term, ongoing, actionable tax relief that could give families, $1,000 a year every year in perpetuity unless the tax code was changed again. We think that's the right thing to do. If we start spending the money, we're going to end up spending money in other long-term areas. Are there areas that some of that money could be spent? Certainly. And are we willing to be open to that discussion? Yes. But the number one thing we're hearing from people is, please give us our money back. Be responsible with the money you do get. We're going into a budget year again. Having this money on the bottom line will certainly make our budgeting process a little bit easier, because we don't know what's going to happen. The economy's up and down with inflation. Our economy isn't as strong as it maybe was previously. So we're at least in a prepared spot. But the number one thing I hear is give it back, and that's what we're going to continue to try to do.
Thank you, Justin. Steve, a rebuttal?
Just a little one side note here is we took our boat out and went to the dealership and tried to make an appointment for get the boat winterized. And he said, well, you can't get it in here until the second week of November. I said, why is that? Because we just sold so many boats this summer, unbelievable, 6 a day, or 6 a week. And I said, oh, there's not a problem with the economy? No, there's not a problem with the economy. The big corporations are making record profits during this COVID. And the inflation ends up on the small guy, always. And so, you know, I just believe that when I was growing up, we had a lot more opportunities that are available for our people today.
Thank you, Steve. Justin?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to our next question from Dennis.
As a member of the legislature, what measures, if any, would you support to reinforce or ensure voter confidence in our elections?
Justin, you first.
So in order to ensure some voter confidence, one of the number one things that I've heard about is it would be important to have a voter ID. I think that's something the state could provide to every Minnesotan. We could provide it on a no-cost basis. That's the number one thing I'm hearing about, but there's other things I think we could do. There's concerns with our voter rolls as well, that those should be cleaned and cleared because there are people that have long passed on that are still on our voter rolls. Provisional ballots are another piece I constantly hear about that could be a potential tool for folks to feel more secure in our elections. So I think those are just a few pieces we should be looking at. Certainly more we could do, but I think that's another area that I think the discussion is important to continue. I know there's been national discussion around elections lately, and I think it's healthy for our society to have some level of skepticism of its government. If you think back to the old Reagan adage, trust but verify, I think that's kind of what we should have towards our elections as well. We should be able to trust them, but also have an opportunity through the systems and checks we have in place to also verify if somebody believes there's something that's out of place.
Thank you, Justin. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I like that trust and verify business, and I believe that's what we do with our recounts. I have been involved in I don't know, 6, 7 different recounts from International Falls down to St. Cloud, Mille Lacs County, and Aiken County. And the first one was my father, who lost in 2002 by 53 votes. After counting in a Senate race all of the votes, there was 2 ballots. They weren't bad ballots, they just were arguing over who it was for. Now, we have paper ballots. The paper ballots are marked, and then the machine counts them. I think more people need to vote, because when I'm out door knocking, there's a lot of people. We have 56,000 registered voters in our district, and we're going to be lucky if 40,000 vote, and that's not good. Minnesota has an excellent record of fair elections, and it just seems like, on all the crimes I can think of, I don't think I would want to go to prison for voting illegally. So, the way we have it set up now, you have a neighbor and a neighbor at the polling place and watching. It can't get any more fairer than that.
Justin?
No rebuttal.
Okay. Then we'll move on to our 10th question from Heidi.
How is our changing climate affecting the future of the region in terms of jobs in the land and environmental concerns? And tell us about some of the innovations that you are seeing as part of the future economy.
Climate is a very, very big issue, and it's very big. I talked to a college student today from Indiana, very important to this 19-year-old person. And, I've been around for a little while, and I can remember driving to California when I was young and coming over the mountains, and all of a sudden it's foggy or smoggy, couldn't see. Then I moved out there, and I was there for about 6 months. I had to have 3 jobs to get the heck out of there. But I lived right close to this mountain called Mount Baldy, and some days I couldn't even see it. It was only 5 miles away. So, you know, we can see that pollution. It's getting a lot better. But I've also been to Alaska, and looking at the ice, you can see the colors and where it's been melting. Our planet is warming up, and it's going to be a major problem. And, you know, they need to switch to renewable energy. They can do both, you know, but if they don't hurry up and do something soon, I would really hate to, you know, is the country going to be able to last another 250 years? Climate change is a big problem. There's a lot of different jobs that could be figured out with these renewables. And in farms, you know, there's all sorts of different smart people who could figure out how to make some kind of energy.
Thank you, Steve. Justin.
Well, as we know, climate has been changing all throughout recorded history, and it affects all of us. That's why it's important to all of us. One thing you asked about was some of the things we have been doing, or some of the things we've seen that are important. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, the Mining and Forestry Policy Chair is going to talk about forestry again. And I think forestry is a huge part of that. Healthy, mature, managed forests sequester carbon better than old growth forests. So as we continue to manage our lands, provide that resource for all of our economy in northern Minnesota, new trees grow and allow for additional carbon sequestration. We are doing our part in northern Minnesota. The state spends lots of money doing those activities. I think we can continue to do that. Those healthy forests are certainly a huge piece of the puzzle to continue to keep our air, our waters, and our general area in northern Minnesota clean.
Thank you. Steve, do you have a rebuttal?
Well, kind of. That all sounds very good, but I do know that the Ag Bill in 22 had a provision where they were going to help farmers out for the last drought that they had. They've been waiting for 9 months for something that was caused by climate change. And Senator Eichorn was the only senator to vote against the bipartisan Ag Bill. And the vote was 66-1. So I can't wait to hear the reason, because I'm sure there's an excellent reason.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
Justin?
you.
The 2022 Ag Bill was loaded with a bunch of objectionable spending. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but in a 30-second rebuttal, unfortunately we don't. But if you want to connect offline with it, or if anyone else does, I'd be more than happy to do that.
All right. Thank you. We're going to move on from our question period and move right into closing comments then. So, Justin, you'll be first.
First of all, I just want to say another thank you to Lakeland Public Television for hosting us this evening. We greatly appreciate it. One more thank you to the residents of the Bemidji, the Beltrami area. It has been an honor to serve you the last 6 years in the Minnesota legislature. I'll miss many of you, but my door will always be open to you as we go into this new Senate District 6, which is different. It has the Grand Rapids area, the Brainerd Lakes area, Cross Lake, it's Itasca, Cass, and Crow Wing counties. Looking forward to serving that area, getting to know those new people, but I really appreciate the connections I've made with folks in this Bemidji area as well, so thank you for that. As you go to vote this year, you're not only voting for individual candidates, but also party agendas as well. As you've seen recently in a Star Tribune article, there was the Democrat Speaker of the House and the Republican Leader of the Senate that both wrote kind of letters to the editor, if you will. The Democrat one did not use even once the word crime or parent, but it used extreme 4 times, abortion 5 times, tax once. It never said you even once, but it mentioned DFL a dozen times. By contrast, the Republican message mentioned the word parents and crime 4 times, kids or children 7 times, tax or tax relief 10 times. The word you was mentioned 9 times, the word Republican just 3. The Republican agenda and what we want to do is about you. It's about the average Minnesotan. And that is what I want to continue to fight for. As I mentioned earlier, I have 4 young children that deserve a better Minnesota than the Minnesota I got. The fight for me is personal. I would be honored to have your vote for the new Senate District 6 to be able to serve not only you, but our state and our region in this beautiful state and continue to fight for our way of life. Please vote for Justin Eichorn on November 8th.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. I would like to thank everybody for putting this together for us. It's very nice that the voters could call in and hear us answer questions live. Again, my name is Steve Samuelson. My website and my Facebook site are all Samuelson for Senate. And I have a very long version of why I'm running in there. I have it about me. I have the Samuelson footprint in Crow Wing County for the past, since it's going back to the 70s. And, but here's the thing. I'm not a party guy. You know, the way it's rigged, you have to pick one party or the other. And one party is, you know, I refuse to be involved with the party that follows a human being, and the other party, it's hard for a person like me because I'm more of an independent person, and I'm also someone who doesn't mind talking truth to power at all. I have friends on both sides of the aisle. So, you know, we all know what that, how that saying is, if, you know, about sanity. If you don't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So if you want somebody who has an independent voice, who's willing to work with both parties, not blame the Republicans for something, not blame the Democrats for something, work together. And when you hear all the rhetoric, that's why nothing gets done. I think it's time to put a person like Jesse Ventura back in the Senate. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Justin. We thank you both for joining us tonight. Thank you to our panel, Dennis, Heidi, Shannon. Thank you all for watching. If you missed any portion of tonight's debate, or if you would like to watch it again, it will be available on the Lakeland PBS website within 24 hours. That website is lptv.org. We want to thank you for joining us tonight. The fun continues tomorrow as we launch into our next 3 debates. We will start with State Senate District 2 at 7 p.m. Thank you. Have a good night.
Lakeland News is member-supported content. Please consider supporting Lakeland News today.